Hey, it's Don. We've got a hot item today. It's something I've talked about before quite a bit. One of the hottest items I'm looking for is non-sports trading cards. Vintage from the 90s and stuff. Those are the hottest items right now in my local area that I can find, that I can routinely find. Again, I've talked about it before. We're going to talk about very specifics and some in-depth on specific ones and reasons, as well as another sideline BOLO that is tied to these items as well. This is probably the biggest area that most of you will be able to find some of this type of material. I can't think of another one that's this hot in anything that I can think of right now that should be this easy to find, because these are common everyday items that were mass produced back when they first came out. A lot of people have jumped in the bandwagon because of the economy. People aren't investing in many other things like hotels, restaurants, all transportation, all that sort of thing. So they're investing in this. So we're going to delve into it a little more because this is really important, and this is one area you should be able to find something in. So today's topic is trade cards, as I said. Now we're going to talk about different aspects of them, not the common old thing. And I'm talking about trade cards quite often lately because they're so darn hot right now. The prices are crazy for stuff 3 and 4 years ago that went for like a tenth or a 20 of this. Like Pokemon 2000, the movie sealed boxes. Now this is a legitimate sale. There's a bunch of these selling for some crazy prices. There's a ton of Pokemon cards out there. The point being that a lot of people think the Pokemon game cards are all that's worth it, and many people pass on these Topps versions here. I know somebody who got a box of these, so you can't say that they're not out there. This area is missed by most people, again, because it's not related to the Pokemon game. This is just from the movie. This isn't a game set. This is a factory sealed box from the movie. It's movie images. Look it up yourself. We're going to touch on a few topics towards the end of the video. There's a good bolo here, and we're going to discuss as we go through here certain aspects of each one of these items that usually you don't hear about. I'm not just going to point out that, hey, you should buy this, or this is what you need to look for. You need to understand why it's important as well. This one, because most people didn't invest into these. There's a bunch of these out there. I'm sure they mass produce these to some extent. So why are they worth so much money? Right now, there's a glut of investors thinking it's safer to sink their money into collectibles versus like a restaurant which may not be opened, or travel investments or hotel investments or any of that sort of thing. So people are investing in collectibles. This isn't going to last, in my opinion. I think it's going to crush some of these categories like this. So get in while it's hot would be my personal opinion on a lot of these items. I've done this far too long. The trading card industry was hot in the 90s. It had similar flows like this, with prices going crazy on some things that were fairly common. It died. It crashed just a few years later. It picked up again in the 2000s, the beginning of the 2000s. Not to this extent. This is probably like a bubble event, in my opinion. So the money's there right now, though. That's what matters. You got to change with the flow. Go after the stuff that's money. These show up at auctions. I've seen them at garage sales, Craigslist posts, Facebook posts, even thrift stores occasionally, but auctions are probably the number one, or a flea market. Those are the places that I will see these sorts of items over and over and over again. I'm not saying you're going to see every one of these, but you're going to see some cards where you can make some good money because other people aren't paying attention to it. Even if some of this stuff is opened, it doesn't matter. Sealed wax packs can sell for $20, $25 on some things that really are only worth $1 or $2. It's wording and your terminology you use. Many people will leave something very specific out that other people put in that will help them to be able to sell it quickly and easily. So now let me pop on to the next one here. Now, Fleer Ultra. They did a whole bunch of Fleer different box sets in the 90s. This is when they were flooding the market. Back then, when this 90s, this is at the end of the run. This is after Comic Ball and non-sports cards pretty much crashed. They were still trying to put this out. They had printed it. It was already in production a year in advance, so it was kind of late. A lot of people didn't pick up on these. They didn't make as much. You can see it says limited run. That is why, because they didn't make as much of these material. For some people, if you don't know what's what in these sorts of cards, they all look the same. It just has a picture of a superhero on it. If you're not into superheroes, you might miss some of these aspects of it. I was around in buying cards when these came out. If I had even a 20th of what I had then, we'd be like well off. We'd be probably in the $1 million range by what the prices are going for some of these items. I had a massive assortment, but you know, hindsight's 2020. I wasn't a major reseller back then, wasn't doing it full time. It was just some sideline, and we got good money back then. So anyway, now here's another one, and I have a few sets of these here. I am just surprised. This went for close to $2,000 in US dollars. This is Marvel Masterpieces. This is the standard set. I've got sets and binders just like this right now. Hadn't a clue until about a year ago that the prices were going up so drastically on these. Most people are looking for the Marvel Universe. The Masterpiece sets are just as good. They're all... Why I like this is Justco and many of the other artists who painted the covers are well known for their comic book painted covers. If you've heard me talk in the past, I love comic book covers that are painted. Tom Corbett's Space Cadet comics from the 50s are some of my favorites. Love the painted sci-fi looks. I'm not a huge Marvel fan or comic book fan as much as I used to be, but I love the painting, the artwork of them these days. I don't have time to read them or collect. So anyway, nothing wrong with comics. I do collect some like Vampirella, Tom Corbett. There's some lines I collect. I kept all the She-Hulks until the movie or series comes out, but anyway, this is a really nice set here. Be on the lookout for these things. There's some other aspects, as I said, we'll go into in just a little bit here. But now this is from Europe. It's the exact same set that was released overseas. Now we're going to talk and go from Marvel still. We're going to talk about Marvel, but a little different. This one's coming from the European Union. Now this set here was actually printed overseas. I believe this is an Argentina set. Now, what many people may not think is that, well, this isn't going to be worth a ton of money and all these other kind of aspects of it. Now, this sold for, well, around $1,700, I think, with the conversion rate plus shipping, and it did sell from Argentina. Well, from Argentina to here, collectors don't spend as much. If a U.S. buyer, say me, I want to make some money on some foreign items, I'll buy them from a foreign site where most people won't be at because the prices will be really reasonable. And then what I would do is I'll have them imported in, and then I will sell them individually or break them up and sell them in the U.S. market from a U.S. seller. Items from a U.S. seller will far go more than an item from a foreign seller here in this country. So a U.S. seller to U.S. seller will always sell more. So I can buy things from other sites, other platforms from other countries, and turn around and resell them here in this country for a very considerable profit. So I might buy it at half cost, turn around and resell it for full cost here, and be able to double my money just from purchasing something from somebody else. I'm not specifically talking about eBay because this is fairly high. Now, if this person goes and grades these cards now, some of these would be considered the first appearance of some of these characters. Maybe Nightcrawler and a few of the other ones in here, but you can see Ghost Rider there, Moto Fantasma. Yeah, this is Argentina. Fantasma is Ghost. And I say that because we've got Weebles, and it says the very same thing. So anyway, this is a good example of a foreign set. Again, I wouldn't buy it off eBay for this kind of money, but if somebody goes and sends these in, they could double their money even from this specific purchase here. If you want to do better, though, go to smaller sites in other countries that are like specific for toys or cards and things like that. You will be surprised at how easy it is to get that sort of thing. I may throw together a video and show you some, but I've talked about foreign sites and stuff like that in the past. And I've talked about eBay having multiple foreign sites also. If you pay enough attention, there's a good way to make money by importing things from other countries. Stuff like this, vintage stuff. Vintage toys are phenomenal. That's why people can travel to Japan, buy some vintage toys from local toy shops, travel back here, even with all that cost, and still make a fortune at a toy show. Because a lot of the people over there, they may not list it, it may not be as rare, they may not keep up on everything. And if you know the market for certain things, you can make a lot of money doing stuff like that. Now, here's another thing that I've talked about before. Now, look at this card. We'll talk about a little more on what this is in just a second here. But look at all the corners are rounded. It has creases over on the left on the blue shadow of the building. This corner is pretty well damaged up there. There's scuffs. There's some nibbles, some flea bites on the right side. Another corner crease down there. The ink, it is not lined up very well either, if you've noticed too. It's not the best printing. Back side-wise, you can see a little more issues. It's not in terrible condition, but it's probably mid-grade because of the corners at best. Why did this mid-grade card sell for $1,925 when other cards from this very same series you'd be lucky to get a few $100s for? And you look them up. This is 1940. I think Gum Ink is exactly what it is. They made a ton of different playing these non-sports trade card sets. This one went for so much is because it's card number 1. That's the only thing you need to remember on any of these earlier sets. If you find any other card, the most important card usually out of any set out there, any vintage set, Star Wars card set, or anything else like that, 80 set down is always card number 1. As a kid, everybody rubber banded the cards together, so 1 was usually the first one damaged. It was usually sat on the top, so if something was spilled, it was the one that was damaged. Card number 1 is always the hardest card to get no matter what. Every time. No matter what, it's always the hardest card to get. The second hardest cards to get are the checklist cards, but they're not as valuable because there's no real graphics on it. It's just basically a set completer, the checklist cards. Like the Star Wars cards. When I was a kid, we actually marked those off. But we had so many of them, you'd get a bunch of them in later years. But in some of the earlier sets, when they first started putting out the checklist cards, they were just a normal card. So it was almost as hard to get, if not harder sometimes, than some of the other cards. So when they're marked on, they're not worth as much. Most of the card number 1s are not in great condition. So I expect to be a lesser grade, but you'll get more for a card number 1. Again, look up Gum Ink or any of these other ones that made cards back in those days. Now let's veer off into Garbage Pail Kids. When I was a kid, this was just junk stuff to me. It was all over the place. This was when I was older. I was 16-ish. I was starting to drive, so I was out of this stuff. But I had them around. They were still all over the place. This is an entire series or set of them. There's different versions. There's a matte and a glossy. Some have different names, as you can see in the top left. Nasty Nick and Evil Eddie. And that was a ploy where they could make more money by wanting you to buy every variant of each card. They just changed the name. It was cheap as can be. They could just use the exact same artwork. So you only have to create half the artwork, but you're getting twice as many opportunities to sell it. This is like if I'm doing postcards, sometimes I'll reverse the image and change the background so I don't have to create new artwork. I've just done a little bit of camera trickery, and now I've got a whole nother card, and I can sell them as a set. This is a standard ploy that I use, companies use as well. Like some of the Return of the Jedi stickers from the Top series from 1983. The stickers they issued in different colored borders. So you'd have the exact same sticker maybe in 2 or 4 different colors. And if you wanted them all, you had to buy a bunch more. And the stickers were more limited, so you'd have to buy more card packs to get the sticker set. So a complete series of every color variation of, say, a Return of the Jedi cards are worth a lot of money. Because there's so many variants, I believe there was 4. I know there was at least 2, but I'm almost sure it was 4. I've got cases of these earlier cards here. I did save them. Even since I was a kid, I still have some of mine. Now, again, another perfect example. A complete series, matte set. GPK is Garbage Pail Kids, if you don't know. Now, this person sold one $1,700. It's a wrapper and the other ones. Now, this atom bomb here, I do believe it was, I think, banned or pulled from it. But that is one of the more popular characters. Atom Bomb right there, and that's the one that you want to advertise. Now, if I didn't put that in the title, I may not get as much. So just keep that in mind. Let's move on to one more thing with it. Now, binders is the last topic today. Binders in general from trading cards were available by sending away. I talk about mail order. Anything that's mail away offers like the promotional Boba Fett with the rocket pack. That was a mail away. You'd have to mail away proof of purchases from the back. I think you had to send so much money or something like that too for postage. I sent away for a bunch of them, and they didn't send you the rocket pack one, but I did get Boba Fett, 2 or 3 of them that way. So this is one of those options here. Now, this is an odd color. Most of the binders aren't red. Most of the binders, too, are not in good condition because these are cheaper binders. They're like the old school vinyl binders. Now, this artwork is printed on the binder. This isn't something that just some random person made. This is an actual official mail away or buyable from a trade store a version of it. So it's not just like you could have got this anywhere. That's why it's worth so much money. Any like set that you had to send away for are worth more money. I've got some of the mail away sets. Beetlejuice, the cartoon series, they made some mail away sets that were complete sets in a box that were sealed by the maker. I can't remember the name of the company. It's a Canadian company, though, but I've got 3 or 4 of them. And the point on it is, though, that they only made like 3,000 of them. And they were the mail-away sets. But they made more of the standard versions of the cards that you buy in a case of 36 wax packs. So, there's many types of things that were mail-away or promotional. Deep Space Nine, there were some promotional sets you'd buy straight out that also had some promo cards in it. Family Guy Star Wars DVD set. Here's a real good example. They issued inside of those mock-up Star Wars cards, but instead it's Family Guy, the Family Guy characters in it. In Star Wars, in the New Hope, the episodes that they did for Family Guy. I've seen them. I've seen them all. And there's also 3D glasses because they're 3D cards. Now that set has gone up considering it was a freebie, only inserted in the DVD box set, I think. So just another example of these mail away things. Anything that was mail away or exclusive to one catalog are incredibly good, like the blue Snaggletooth, which I showed out in the action figure set. The Battlestar Galactica action figures, there's Lucifer and Balthazar. They're only available through Sears or JCPenney's, just like Indiana Jones figures from the original 3 3/4, same thing. A lot of those catalogs have specific ones. Some of the Weebles, like Winnie the Pooh, some of those were only available from Sears. So if you wanted specific toys, you had to get them from a specific place. So that means that there was less of them because those were only marked for sale for those. Instead of all the items printed like that, just being able to be purchased anywhere, you had to purchase those at one specific place. Anything that you see that wouldn't have been sold in a normal store at a normal time has potential right off the bat. Right off the bat. Okay, now, vintage trade cards. Some cards, some sets, again, this is a set that a few years ago, just a couple of years ago, $500, $600, $700. It's now more than doubled. Of course, it's scarce. Some of these series were limited in production. They were test sets, only released in certain markets. They didn't sell well, so they weren't released fully. There was a Bionic Woman set that was released, I think. It's not the standard set. There was a test run set. Things like that are worth some good money. Partially with stuff like this one here, too, they're centered. The cuts are good. These are things that I only run into like single cards usually, but at auctions, you'll have to spend more is the point. On something like this, you could conceivably see investing $500 or $600 into this, and the person you're buying it from may assume that's a good price, but the prices have skyrocketed some phenomenal price. And if people who know cards or collected cards don't keep track of the value, there's money to be made is the point. So, okay, now we're going to go back and talk about, again, card number 1. This is card number 1. Star Wars cards. Again, just flip back the time machine for just a year or two. These cards only went for a couple $100 a set. I bought them. I still have thousands of original Blue Series cards that we bought not too long ago, a couple years ago. That's when we bought them. But they're up to the $1,400, $1,500 range. This is not a one-off. They're all over the place for $500, $600, $700, $800, $1,000, $1,200 right this second. Now these are decent condition cards. I'm sure they'll probably rate. Oh, it looks like there's some issue on the very top card, actually, on the right edge. But I would say they would rate like 8.9 to 9.3. I'm not a card grader, so to speak. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I wouldn't call these like 9.8 or higher. Honestly, they still have nice gloss and everything else. Don't forget, there's a lot of these that were produced, and there are some reproductions. So just be careful when you're out there. But man, these are so hot. I can't tell you how hot these are. If the condition, though, isn't good on these, you're not going to get anywhere near this. So condition. I passed on a fairly large lot of vintage cards because the condition wasn't good. They weren't terrible. They were mid-grade. And you know how much mid-grade materials out there? There's a lot. So if you're paying up for something and you're not going to be able to flip it for a decent amount, Don't sink the money into it. With these cards going now, all the ones that are skyrocketing in price are all tip-top condition. Condition. If they're not in the greatest condition, you might almost want to pass up on some of these sorts of things, because what everybody is doing, as you see, is grading them. It's insane that a Wonder Bread card, like any Wonder Bread card, would go for more than $100-$150, because that's what the market was for all up until a year or two ago. So again, this is just crazy, insane. This is people who are afraid to invest in the hotel, restaurant industry, travel industry, recreation industry, game industry, sporting industries, all that stuff. The money's tight now because the pandemic's still limiting. So they're all shoving their money into here because they got to keep investing. So this is bad and good. It's good for us right now, but this is going to crash some of these markets when reality comes to play and these items aren't rare and everybody's sending them in. But for right now, you've got at least, I think, until after the end of this year before any of this stuff's going to start, crashing down. The bubble is going to burst. There will be a bubble in this area, without a doubt, in my opinion. The housing market's heading that way again right now. So now what's particular about this, though, these are the small stickers. Panini, I'm not sure how their name's pronounced, but these are like a dime a dozen they were at one point. Most people don't even mess with this brand because they're not really cards. They're just stickers for an album. Panini. Look that name up and see the prices are skyrocketing on those. So things that I wouldn't have messed with just a couple years ago, I'm messing with. In this brand, most of the stuff for this brand isn't worth hardly anything. Fortnite, even though the action figures are languishing on shelves right now, the boxes of trading cards are not. So FYI, just another touch on that. Now, as I touched on binders. Again, these are promotional send-away binders. Even if you just had the binder would still be worth some good money. Obviously, it has the cards with it, but the binder is the key. These are official binders. Now, I know you can make some good money printing your own binders for these. Again, it's probably not legal. There could be some issues with it, but the point being that these are official. These are official binders. You can do some generic space binders and still make some money. Again, I got a video about that, I think, up actually on here, but the binders, again, these are specific. You had to order these ahead of time or pre-order them or actually send away for these. Another one here. Here's Star Trek Classic Movies, Heroes and Villains. Another one of those send away binders. You can't just go to a store and get these binders. So that's the point on the binder aspect of it. If I had the cards or a binder, you're going to probably make more money off the binder itself in many of these cases because there weren't many of them made. Maybe they made them as they got the orders in, for all I know. Maybe there was something they could print. I don't know the exact quantity or structure on it, but the binders are always worth money. One thing people do assume too, just like when I pick up the record sleeves or empty covers for records, I almost always get those for free if I'm buying records. Binders can be the same basic principle. I just sold a Pokemon one just the other day. Any of the binders that are official binders are worth money if they're logoed or labeled. Now, all they have to do is say Star Trek and be official. It doesn't have to have imagery or anything else, or Star Wars, or Garbage Pail Kids, or Doctor Who, or any of those sorts of things to carry a value. Doesn't even have to be a good movie or TV series. I've never seen an episode of Lost in my entire life. But Lost binders, and this isn't the only binder you're going to find that's out there. You're going to find other ones. $710. Most of the Lost ones are going for these kinds of money. Trade cards in general are skyrocketing across the board. So even what wasn't collectible 4 or 5 months ago is skyrocketing. So look through your back stock. Check out the garage sales, the flea markets, the auctions, and start nabbing up the trade card stuff quickly because this stuff isn't going to last at these prices. I think it's going to crash within the year. So hopefully we'll get through Christmas season and these items are going to be horrendously hot. This is a good play on what's coming to the fourth quarter would be my guess. Game of Thrones, again, I've never seen a complete episode of Game of Thrones in my life, ever. It's just I don't watch TV, and the wife's seen them, I think, most all but the last season or something. But the binders, again, the cards themselves aren't worth a fortune. The binders have skyrocketed because all the people who want everything that goes with the sets with value and trying to increase the value want a complete run of everything. You don't just want the cards. If there's a binder for it, you want that. For other cards, it's even some Star Wars and Superman, you could send away to Topps for like a promotional on the wrapper they advertise for a complete uncut sheet of the cards. It's the exact same set, but it's in a sheet. A Star Wars one of those is worth a horrendous amount of money. So all of those promo items, like some of these binders, were sometimes available on the wrapper itself. I've shown you, I've got stacks of wrappers here, going back from the original Star Wars and the whole works. All of these sorts of things are super, super hot, but they will not stay. We've been digging out cards left and right. I've got, cases of cards. We want to get moving. But again, they're only going to be hot for a certain length of time. This is one of those markets that comes and goes. In the time I've been collecting trading cards since probably about 77, 78, maybe a little earlier than that, because I do remember having some of the 76 Star Trek cards. They've had 3 or 4 huge market eras where 3-4 years the market was horrendously high, and then it crashed. So we're on year 2 right now of this trend of it increasing. So at the most, you've got 2 years, at the very, very most. I don't think it's going to last that long, unless the pandemic still pushes the other avenues for their investment down, like restaurants still don't pick back up. The money never goes back to the restaurants. These may sit and be able to advance for a while. I'm not usually one to say, let's get in and get out quicker on stuff. I like to, do some prospecting, but I think this category could be a little risky, especially if you're sinking top dollar. Get them all cheap. Don't spend a fortune unless you've double checked your research and you know for sure that if you invest $200, you're going to get $400 or $500 back on what you're buying. In card wise, don't sink a bunch of money out if you don't have it. Like, going back to the buttons, I know I talk about that a lot, but it's been probably my biggest purchase, my best purchase in 5 years now. It keeps increasing because of the amount of profit we're still gaining. There are some massive card collections that are being bought right now by people like me and other resellers now that have realized the same thing, that you got to get this stuff while you can right now. So my biggest call out to invest right now to make some really good money are trade cards, any type of that. And second base on that would be any item that you had to send away, any toy item, or like a specialty comic book or something that you had to send away for. If you had to send away for it, they're going to be worth some money. Or the action figures that you get one arm from another character and you had to buy a bunch of different characters to put together a separate figure. There's a bunch of those sorts of things out there too. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. Hopefully that was helpful. I've got a ton of this stuff here in-house. I mean a ton, because I've had it, in inventory for since I was a child, some of it. Most of it's been in my inventory for at least 10 years. I got other things that were selling better. The non-sports trade cards have not been selling prior to this pandemic for anything like this. So I just been setting them aside when I get them. I got boxes of them. So now it's been paying off, me holding on to them. So anyway, hopefully, again, that was helpful. I do sincerely thank everybody for the kind support. I'm here if you need something. Don't hesitate to reach out. Oh, one more quick thing. I get on the Auction Professor, my AT&T account that's tied to YouTube, hundreds and hundreds of emails on a weekly basis. I can't answer them. I can't even look through them. There's just so many coming in. If anybody needs to get in touch with me, please do it through here on Patreon. There's full-fledged email in here. If you need to attach a photo, upload it to your free Google Docs account, and you can just drop me the link. Just remember to share it with me. So if you don't want to post something for everybody to see, which happens all the time, people constantly send me, very specific images that they don't want anybody else to see. So no problem. Completely fine with that. Just drop me a link, because you can't really upload a photo into the email here in Patreon. But anyway, thanks again.